However, the negative of all that is while things are looking a little better, you have this. Well, first of all, you have in 1974 the Watergate crisis. And when he was running for re-election in 1972, Nixon and the Republicans cheated. And they broke into the Democratic National Headquarters. Whether Nixon knew about it beforehand or not is unclear. What is clear is he tried to cover up the scandal and broke the law. And ultimately, his popularity wanes. And he is about to be impeached and kicked out of office because even his Republicans are starting to think this guy's bad and we've got to get rid of him. So Nixon resigned. And so at the height of all Nixon's success, suddenly he falls from grace. And America has a crisis because we, for the first time ever, lost a president because of scandal. And then right on the heels of that, right after he's driven from office, over in Vietnam, well, negotiations to make some kind of peaceful connection between the countries didn't work. Fighting increased, and the North, without American troops there to help them, overran the South. Now, unlike what you saw in Afghanistan, the South actually fought. And they fought hard. But they couldn't. Their government, their military was not organized well enough and prepared to do the fighting on their own as much as we had tried to prepare them. And they were overran. Their country was captured. And here you see pictures that the first images I remember as a kid on TV of our country losing. I grew up in America that was losing. The 1970s was not a good time for America. We had lost in Vietnam, and we have these images. This is the American embassy as Americans and our Vietnamese allies are fleeing as the communist troops are coming into Saigon. We fled. Communism took over. The domino fell. And then Laos and Cambodia fell. And then the dominoes stopped falling. They didn't fall all the way to India. It didn't cause regional communism. But we had lost in Vietnam. This was a setback. And then things get worse here in the United States. Two other things which make us look really weak. Over in Afghanistan in 1980, the Russians invaded Afghanistan and took that country over to prop up a communist government there. And what did we do about it? We refused to play ball with them. In 1980, the Americans refused to send our Olympic team to Moscow for the Summer Olympics. That, and we cut some grain sales, and that's about it. We look pathetically weak. Russia's invading a whole country, and all we can do is say, we aren't going to play with you anymore. And then that same year, as weak as we look even weaker because over in Iran, the Shia Muslim radical government, radicals under the Ayatollah Khomeini, that's his picture in the little, on the little poster there, they overthrew our buddy, the Shah. We liked the Shah because he was a king who wasn't a communist. The people there didn't like him because he was kind of rough on his people, and he was an elitist, and he favored the West and let Western culture creep into Iran. And those hardline Shia Muslims didn't like our culture, and they didn't like him, and the people overthrew him, and he fled. And while in exile, he was allowed to come to the United States to get cancer treatment, they were furious. They didn't like us to begin with. They didn't like us supporting him all these years. And when he came to America, students overran the American embassy and took 52 Americans hostage. And were we able to stop that from happening? We not only couldn't stop it, we couldn't fix it. We sent our special forces to go rescue the hostages. Unfortunately, our special forces, they rendezvoused in helicopters outside of Tehran, and there was a helicopter crash. And we had to scrub the mission. And when we scrubbed the mission, they split our hostages up into little groups and spread them all over town so we couldn't come in and rescue them in one mission again. And Carter, our president, just couldn't seem to fix the problem. And on top of that, we're weak. The Iranians are laughing at us, and they've captured Americans. The Russians are laughing at us. They've invaded Afghanistan. We've lost in Vietnam. And with all the other stuff going on, the Arabs have jacked up the price of oil on us because they don't like the way we're supporting Israel. And our economy is a wreck. Gas prices and all prices are sky high. In 1979, America is looking weak. America don't look so great. And we need someone to make America great again. And who is going to use that campaign slogan in 1980? If you remember back to 2016, there was a fellow who said we need to make America great again. And what was this guy really? A TV star. And yeah, and kind of a millionaire that may or may not have any business sense. Donald Trump. Donald Trump was very smart. He was copying a tagline from decades before that he knew Americans and Republicans would buy into. Because that's what Reagan did. In 1980, Reagan, an actor, comes along and he promises to make America great again. He's going to build up our military and get tough against the communists again. He is going to fix our economy. And Americans are desperate in 1979. And in 1979, Ronald Reagan is going to be elected President of the United States. And he promises to fix things. Yes?
Wait, so is the Cold War still going on?
Yes. Reagan's going to be the president that a lot of people are going to credit for ending the Cold War. But the other thing that's ending the Cold War is over in China, what's China already starting to do? Okay, they're starting to become more capitalist in their economy, and they're opening up a little bit to the world. Over in Russia, their economy is a wreck. If you thought our economy was bad, I mean, we're paying high prices. Y'all remember how there wasn't any toilet paper on the shelves? To my generation, that was especially disturbing to us, because that's what we always said about the communists. Because the communists, they couldn't keep toilet paper on their shelves. People would have to wait in line, sometimes for a couple of days, in communist nations to buy bare necessities like toilet paper. That was what we always talked about, how the communists couldn't get toilet paper. They'd have to wait for days just to get toilet paper for their family because they were in such bad shape. So over in Russia, their economy's bad, but they're trying to keep up with us. Over here in America, we got some rough times, but Reagan's promising to fix them. Well, here's how Reagan's going to beat the commies. One, he's got to fix our economy. And he falls back on traditional Republican economics of give tax breaks to who? The wealthy and the businesses. The idea is you give the tax break to the rich, they reinvest in their businesses, hiring more people, creating more goods, which lowers prices, and the savings trickle down to the middle class and the lower class. That's traditional Republican economic policy going all the way back to after the Civil War. They rebrand it, they say it different ways, and they have little tweaks to it, but that's basically what Reagan does. And whether it worked or not depends on which economist you talk to. Some say, oh, Reagan fixed it. Others say, no, the economy just got better because it was so bad it had to get better. So whichever person you talk to, they still agree the economy got better. And Reagan gets the credit because voters in 1984, we're going to put him back into office. He's going to, how many states out of 50 do you think he wins in 1984? He won 49 states out of 50. The only state he didn't win, Minnesota, which was where his opponent was from. He won every other state. People believed he was fixing the economy. The other thing people believed was he was getting tough on the communists. He started building up our military. Now, it wasn't that our military was actually weak. I mean, Carter had made military cuts, but come on, our military wasn't really that weak. What he did was he started this kind of spending. A $2 trillion defense budget. We're making all kinds of new weapon systems, new missile systems, and we're even trying to develop something called the Strategic Defense Initiative, otherwise nicknamed Star Wars. What was Star Wars going to do? Any ideas?
Did you really name it after Star Wars?
That's the nickname. It's because it's going to be in space. What we were going to do is put satellites in space that could shoot down incoming Soviet missiles. They would use lasers to shoot down the missile, or they would use radio waves to jam the missile frequency and make the missile go off course. Or we're turning the whole world into our Death Star, basically. Now, the thing is, America did not build Star Wars. There is no missile net in space. But what we did do is spend millions and millions and millions of dollars experimenting with it. And what did that force the Russians to do? If we have a missile net, what must they have? They've got to have it. And think about for a second how scary what we were talking about doing is to the rest of the world. What if we did have a super missile net in space where we could shoot down any missile fired at us, yet nobody could shoot down the missiles we fire at them? What would that basically give us? Total control of this world. That's scary. Even if it's us, that's scary that one nation has that kind of power. Now, we never achieved that, but it was frightening to a lot of people, and it was especially frightening to the Russians. They had to keep up. So, did they have the money to spend? No. So the Russians have to double down and spend more money that they don't have, and it is straining their economy. What the people who give credit to Reagan for ending the Cold War say is that what Reagan did was he made the Cold War about what it had really been about all along. Not militaries, economics. Communist economy versus capitalist economy. Can the capitalist economy spend insane amounts of money and still survive? Yes. It may not necessarily be good in the long run for our country to spend that kind of money, but we can do it because our capitalist economy can stand it. The Russians try to spend that much money, and their already strained economy is going to collapse. And so he stretches them to their limits. Now, the guy he's going to be, just to mention more close calls. We're still having close calls in the 1970s. In 1979, this place, look at these big old giant computers that they had back in 1979. We're still not up to today. Your little laptop got more computing power than all that combined, probably. But our main headquarters, our nuclear high command, anyone know where that is? NORAD? It's like something out of a movie because they put it in a lot of movies. It's underneath a mountain in Colorado.
That's cool.
Oh yeah, it's cool. It is an underground super fortress built under the mountains, so if the Russians ever nuke us, they can close these giant blast doors, and our nuclear high command can continue on with that nuclear war even after they're blowing up everything on the surface. So there really is a place called NORAD under a mountain in Colorado with all these computers. And by the 1970s, we're starting to use computers to organize our nuclear defense, to detect incoming missiles. But you all know computers. Are they reliable?
No.
And this is what was scary. Anyone ever seen the movie War Games? It's based on what happened just a couple of years before. What happened is a American commander at one of our bases connected to NORAD put in a computer program with a nuclear simulation that simulated Russian missiles coming in so our computers could think through a nuclear war. He put it in. It read on the screens like there really was a nuclear attack coming, and they called the president to get the launch codes. They were getting ready to launch a counterattack. Fortunately, people in the next 3 minutes figured out this doesn't seem right, and they rechecked everything and checked actual radar and just found out there was no things in the sky coming at us, but the computers told us there were. The Russians had a similar thing happen, and this guy, Stanislav Petrov, he's the other Russian who saves the world. The Russians had a new incoming missile system, and it was showing the Americans were launching 6 missiles at the Russians. And 30 guys in the Russian command relayed the orders up the chain of command that it's time to launch nukes. And when it got to this guy, he looked at it and he said, wait a minute. the Americans aren't going to shoot just 5 missiles at us. That doesn't make sense. And he broke protocol and slowed down the process long enough that they could get other information in before he passed it on up the chain of command. If he hadn't, there's a good chance that they launch a counterstrike. So we still have high tension. Something's got to give. Next class, we'll finally put a nail in the coffin of the Cold War and move on and finish things up. Study, study, study. We'll see y'all next class.